Good morning. On behalf of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus, welcome to our Sunday service. I'm Linda Thompson, and I welcome you. We gather in the homelands of the Adena, the Hopewell, the Wyandotte, the Miami, the Seneca, and the Cayuga peoples. Let us take a moment of silence together to express our gratitude and appreciation for the connection of Indigenous people to this place. Brandon will lead us in our opening hymn, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. The words will appear on the screen. It is number 361 in the gray hymnal. Please rise in body and spirit, and let us sing.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Good morning. I'm Linda, and my pronouns are she, her. Welcome to our series of summer services. We are excited to introduce guest speakers and ministers who will present a variety of topics and ideas. Our senior minister, the Reverend Dr. Marion Stewart, will return to the pulpit in mid-August. We are glad you joined us today in person or online. Please let us know you are here by filling out our check-in form, online or at the greeter stand. This simple act helps us maintain connections with our congregation. You can access a digital order of service, the Joys and Sorrows form, and our donation page by scanning the QR code, or by visiting firstuucolumbus.org/Sunday. We also have pen and paper joys and sorrows and cards, which you can submit at the candle table in the back. We have a couple of announcements this morning. There are still opportunities to help the refugee family who are now settled here in Columbus. They are in the process of preparing for an apartment and could still use a few items. We currently have a few spots available for both weeks of Peace Camp. Please share with your friends and family. There are new friends to be made and so much fun to be had. I would now like to invite our children to help our chalice light by bringing in the light. You are going to meet Andy at the back. No, I guess Amber. Okay. So she will take you out into the welcome hall where you will prepare to bring in the light. Our young people will return in just a few moments. Let us center ourselves as we listen to this morning's prelude. Now it is time for the children to bring in the light. Our chalice lighting words are by Odette Fulbright Fulson. This light we kindle is set in the lamp of our history. We inherit this free faith from the brave and gentle, fierce and outspoken hearts and minds that have come before us. Let us be worthy inheritors of this faith, and through our good works, pass it bodily to a new generation. Our chalice is lit.
Good morning. Thank you, Molly, for your help lighting our chalice today. I'm Amber Scott, your Director of Religious Exploration, and my pronouns are she, her, or they, them. We are still seeking classroom volunteers to work with our children and youth this year. Please email me at amber@firstucolumbus.org to get involved. Our story today is called One, written and illustrated by Catherine Otoshi. Blue was a quiet color. He enjoyed looking up at the sky and floating on the waves. And on days he felt daring, splashing in rain puddles. Every once in a while, he wished he could be more sunny, like yellow, or bright, like green, or more regal, like purple, or outgoing, like orange. But overall, he liked being blue, except when he was with Red. Red was a hothead. He liked to pick on Blue. "Red is a great color," he'd say. "Red is hot, blue is not." Then Blue would feel bad about being blue. Sometimes yellow comforted Blue. "Blue's a very nice color," she'd say. But yellow never said that in front of Red. She never said, "Stop picking on Blue." Green, purple, and orange thought blue was nice too, but they never told Red to stop either. Every time Red said something mean and no one spoke up, he got bigger and bigger and bigger. Soon, Red grew so big that everyone was afraid of him. No one dared stop him. Red picked on all the colors, and everyone felt a little blue. until one came. He had a different shape with bold strokes and squared corners. He was funny. He made the colors laugh. Red saw this and got very hot. "Stop laughing," he told yellow. "Stop laughing," he told green. "Stop laughing," he told purple and orange. And they did. Red rolled up on one. "Stop laughing," he told him. But one stood up straight like an arrow and said, "No." Red was mad, but one wouldn't budge, so Red rolled away. One turned to the colors and said, "If someone is mean and picks on me, I, for one, stand up and say no." Then yellow felt brave and said, "Me too." Green agreed and said, "Me 3." Then purple became 4 and orange became 5. Blue saw the colors change. He wanted to count. Red grew hot. He felt left out. He grew hotter and hotter and hotter. Red raced over to Blue and said what he always did. "Red is hot, Blue is not." But this time, Blue stood up tall and became 6. "Red can be really hot," he said, "but Blue can be super cool." Red blew a fuse and tried to roll over Blue, but everyone took a stand and said, "No." Seeing them standing tall made Red feel very, very, very small. Then Red turned even redder and began rolling away. Blue called out, "Can Red be hot and Blue be cool?" Red stopped in his tracks. "Red can count too," said one. Red rocked and rolled and turned into 7. "Everyone counts," they shouted. Then Red laughed and joined the fun. Sometimes it takes just one. The end. In this story, the colors are able to change their situation by changing the narrative. I invite you to consider the ways the stories we tell have the power to transform us, our communities, and our lives. I now invite the congregation to remain seated and to form a sheltering arc of love as we sing our young people back to their families and out to class.
Beneath our arms we shelter you. You warm our hearts as you pass through. May our love guide you as you go, to help you learn and help you grow.
Good morning. I'm Rev Joan VanBecelaere. My pronouns are she, her. And I am supposed to tell you that I used to be the Central East Regional Lead and worked with all kinds of stuff in the UUA for a long history. Enough of that. The universe is an ever-changing place. Our lives are filled with change. Change in our families and the larger society. Change in economics and our climate. Even in our religion and congregations. And as we consider this undeniable reality, I want to offer you an ancient Sufi parable about a little mountain stream who wanted to run and join the big, blue, beautiful ocean. Now, one day she decided to start on her journey, determined that absolutely nothing was going to stop her. She danced around the big mountain boulders, and she pushed aside the smaller rocks, and she gurgled over the gravel in her path and flowed under bridges and through green, lush valleys. Now, along the way, she watered green plants, she pooled under cool shade trees, and provided water for animals and birds and fish. And this was all good, this was all pleasant, but nothing, absolutely nothing, was going to stop her from reaching the big, beautiful blue ocean. Nothing, until she reached the huge, sandy, brown desert. The brown desert extended as far as the eye could see, vast stretches of hot, burning sand, no green plants for her to water, no cool shade trees to pool under, no animals to drink her water, not even boulders to dance around or gravel to gurgle beneath. And sheets of heat shimmered above the surface of the sand. Everywhere the little stream looked, there was desolation and death. And it was the most horrible sight the little stream had ever seen. But this desert stood between her and the big, beautiful blue ocean. So she had no choice but to try and cross this horrible wasteland. So mustering her confidence as best she could, the little stream gathered herself up and started to cross the desert. But all of her waters disappeared into the sand. Well, again, she gathered herself up and she moved out into the desert, and her waters disappeared again. Again, she gathered herself again, and again she tried, and again her waters just disappeared. Well, this was making her very frustrated and very, very afraid. Suddenly, she heard a voice in the wind, and it said, "The wind can cross the desert. So can a little stream." Well, the little stream protested. "Oh, the wind can fly and I cannot." But the voice in the wind responded, "Change. You must change and let yourself be absorbed by the wind." "No way," cried the little stream. "I want to remain the same stream that I am today." "That's not possible," said the voice in the wind. "But your essence, your core, can be carried forward by the wind and become a stream again. Remember your core essence." Well, the little stream remembered, kind of dimly, but long ago, she had once been held in the arms of the wind. So bravely, she let herself evaporate into vapor and rise as a cloud into the arms of the wind, which carried her across the burning sand and let her fall gently as rain on the far mountains. And there she became a stream again, even bigger than before, and continued her journey to join the big, beautiful blue ocean. Now, a lot of us, when faced with a challenging experience, if we can remember our own deep values, our own core essence, we can come out stronger, more resilient, or at least a little wiser, instead of giving in to fear and anxiety. The key to handling that challenge of change is to draw on our understanding of our core essence to help control our natural anxious responses. Because when we experience major change, we human beings have a very basic, hardwired reaction. After all, we really like things to be predictable. Day after day, year after year, we want to know that the sun will rise each morning. We like to know where the breakfast is coming from, things like that. But many of us experience anxiety when faced with change. Whether it's good change, bad change, planned change, sudden surprise change, we still react with anxiety because the future is a big, scary, frightening unknown. So facing major change causes that little reptilian part of our brain back here, the amygdala, to kick in. And this is the part of the brain that moves us to fight or freeze or flee in the face of danger or uncertainty. So faced with change, not only did we tend to get anxious, but this anxiety leads us to a kind of roller coaster of emotions. And Gil Rendell named this the roller coaster of change in his book, Leading Change in Congregations. And the roller coaster of change is a model that identifies this natural, predictable sequence of feelings and relationships that accompany shifts in reality. Now, I'm not going to go through a whole discussion of that book. That's for a workshop sometime. But I want to note that Rendell describes how sometimes we move through this series of emotions very quickly. Sometimes we go a little bit slower. And sometimes we get stuck. Now, one of the first reactions is always shock and anger. How dare the universe change on us just when we knew what to expect from it? Then we try to blame others because it's always someone else's fault and they got to fix it. Then we move to denial. We want to forget that anything has really changed. We try to cover up things with a comforting but false story. It's a little like the story of once there was a rug merchant who laid out all of his beautiful carpets one morning at the market. And he stood back to admire their beauty. And he saw a great big ugly lump in the middle of one of his most beautiful carpets. So he took his broom and he beat it down. And he stepped back, but then he noticed that the ugly lump had popped up in a far corner. So he went and he beat it down even harder. And then he saw that it popped up in the other far corner. Well, totally frustrated and angry, he went over and he beat repeatedly on that lump. And suddenly, out popped a very angry snake. If we get stuck in denial, the negative emotion can rise at an unexpected time in an unexpected way to bite us in the end. Now, sometimes, as Rendell notes, we can get stuck in one of these negative roller coaster emotions for a very, very long time. And we might never learn to accept or learn how to deal with the new reality. And we all know people like that who've never gotten over their anger or their denial about some event or change that they never really learned how to deal with. But if we keep moving on the roller coaster, we next come to a feeling of kind of depression when we realize that things have truly changed. That's it, end of story. And this is where we have to let go of the past and make a decision to hang in there, accept the new reality, and move on. Just like the little stream did. Or we might decide instead to leave the situation entirely, maybe for a short time to get our act together, or we might leave for good, because that is a moment of decision at the bottom of the roller coaster. And if we decide to move into the new reality, then we start to think about some different ways of doing things and look for new opportunities and move forward in hope for a new future. Now, we've all heard the story of how Moses brought a full year of plagues that completely overturned and destabilized Egyptian society. And after the climactic final plague, the slaying of the firstborn, Pharaoh finally agreed to let the Israelites leave Egypt. But like any good megalomaniac, Pharaoh then changes his mind and chases after them with all of his army and hundreds of his best war chariots. Meanwhile, the Israelites have traveled on and find themselves stopped by the Reed Sea. And when they look back, they see the thundering Egyptian horses and the chariots quickly approaching. And the Israelites are trapped between the water and the Egyptian army. And they are horrified. They can't fight or flee, so they freeze. And then they begin to angrily blame Moses. They said, "Was it for want of graves in Egypt that you brought us to die in this wilderness? What have you done to us, taking us out of Egypt? Is this not the very thing we told you before? Let us be, and we will serve the Egyptians. For it is better for us to serve the Egyptians than die in a wilderness." You see, after 210 years of intolerable suffering, they now complain to Moses for liberating them. Such is the anxiety that change, even good change, can cause. And they freeze in anger and blame and denial. For the Israelites in Egypt, life was predictable, right? In slavery, the rations might be meager, the bed was made of straw, but, there was an upside. All one's needs were provided. There were no challenging decisions to be made. No change, no anxiety. And the Hebrew word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, means a place of confinement, because sometimes it's the very smallest box that makes us feel the most secure. So Moses says to them, "Hold your peace, I will go to God, God will solve this for us." And he then goes to God to complain about the situation. And God says, "Why do you stand around and cry out to me, Moses? Tell the Israelites to go forward. Just lift up your staff and hold out your arm over the sea and split it so the Israelites may march forward through the sea on dry ground." Now, the Bible then says that Moses held out his arm and the sea split and the people walked. And, that's the standard version we've all heard. But some ancient rabbis didn't find that convincing. A spectacular miracle, to be sure, but something totally passive, accomplished through Moses' arm and God's grace, but missing the element of human agency. So they added to the story. In a version in the Talmud, the Israelites gathered at the water's edge. Then after spending some time arguing with God, Moses finally lifted up his staff and arm as God commanded, and nothing happened. Nothing. The sea just sat there, unsplit. Thousands of Israelites are standing at the shore of the sea. Their options are either to go forward into the unsplit cold sea or back to Egypt. The sea is cold and strange and foreboding. Egypt is warm and familiar and comfortable. The Egyptians are thundering closer. The people panic. Moses had never failed to produce a miracle before, so what's up with this? Then suddenly, out of the crowd, walks a single solitary figure. Nachshon, from the tribe of Yehuda, boldly steps foot into the sea. His family and friends cry out in horror and amazement, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" Now, that might have been the original one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind, but the sea still does not split. So Nachshon continues as the water reaches his ankles. Then he walks up to his knees. Still no split sea. Nachshon forges forward deeper. Now he's up to his waist and then his chest, and still no split. Nachshon's mind races. Well, maybe we should return to Egypt. But then he reminds himself life is about growing and leaving the place of confinement behind, moving forward into the promise of the unknown. But the alternative, to stay in that small space of warmth and comfort, is to choose stagnation and ultimately death. So Nachshon knew that Egypt was no choice. Now, the water had reached his neck, and Nachshon was being challenged to his limit. But he continues into the sea as the water reaches his nose. And then, the second the water comes up over his nostrils and then his forehead, the second when he is fully immersed in the sea, at that moment and not a second before, the sea splits. And the Israelites all rush in after him and march to freedom. So why did it take God so long to split the sea? Some rabbis say that we need to deal with our own anxiety before God can help us. We need to make that decision to step into the sea, to march into the new reality and help ourselves, our world, our community, and then God can help us. Other rabbis say that when the people saw the decision that Nachshon had made and how he was willing to risk, they all decided to step together as one into the water with him. And it was at that moment that the sea finally split. Liberation comes to those who are able to decide to move forward through the emotions of that roller coaster of change, anger, denial, despair. Nachshon's gift was the ability not only to see the new possibilities of the moment, but believe in that future promise, to decide and risk wading in the water. Now, from West Africa comes a short story of two caterpillars who crawled in a garden. And as they made their way through the grass, they nibbled at this and they nibbled at that. And then they saw something gliding down from the sky, something beautiful. It rested on a blade of grass where it folded and unfolded multicolored iridescent wings. Then it fluttered back into the sky and disappeared in the bright sunlight. One caterpillar shook her head and said, "Did you see that thing? Did you see how it moved? Oh, that looks dangerous. You won't see me doing anything like that. Oh, no, no, no. I will keep my feet on the ground, stay right here where I know how things operate. I will never, never try to do anything like that." And she crawled across the grass again, and she nibbled at this and nibbled at that. But the second caterpillar stared into the quiet sky and silently said to herself, someday, I will fly." Now, the two caterpillars continued to make their way through the garden. They ate and they ate, but that's all the first caterpillar ever did, and after a while, simply feeding did not fulfill her. No matter what she ate, she withered and failed until there was nothing left of her. Now, the second caterpillar ate until she was full. Then she found a quiet place, and she rested there, wrapping herself in the chrysalis of her dreams. And she rested on those dreams until they became ideas that played and stirred and itched inside of her. And then she stretched herself and worked her way out into a new life. She had wings, she could fly, and she had become the one she was meant to be, a butterfly. Sometimes we let ourselves get stuck in the emotions of that negative side of the roller coaster. We give up, we stop trying, we refuse to do the work needed because it's too hard. The opposition is too strong. The results we want are too long coming or too uncertain. But those who move on and emerge on that upward slope of the roller coaster find that they can often inspire others to join with them in that changed reality. Now, our final tale is going to require your help. And it's the story of a drop of water named Higgins. Okay. Now, Higgins, as you know, was no ordinary drop of water. He was a drop with a dream. Higgins lived in a valley where it had not rained in a very, very long time. So all the lovely green grass was turning crinkly and brown. This is where you help me out. Let's do it together. Crinkly and brown. And the beautiful, colorful flowers were wilting. Let's do that again. Wilting. And all the tall green trees had started to droop. Droop. Oh, yeah. You're very good at this. Now, Higgins had a dream that one day the valley could be beautiful again. But, what could he do? After all, he was only a drop of water. But one day, Higgins decided to travel and tell his friends about his dream, and maybe they could all come together and come up with something. And all the other drops listened very politely, because they were good little Unitarian Universalist drops. But absolutely no one believed that his dream would come true. And they all said, "Oh, Higgins, 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 get your head out of the clouds. You can't spend your whole life dreaming." But Higgins decided that he had to do something to make this dream come true. So he began to think and think and think. And one day, while he was walking by a rusty old bucket, he got an idea. If enough of us drops of water got together into this bucket, there might be enough water here to sprinkle on a few of the flowers to help them grow and become beautiful again. Excited, Higgins quickly told everyone his great idea, and they all politely listened again. But everyone thought he was being foolish and said, "Oh, Higgins, you are nothing but a dreamer." But Higgins was determined that he had to do something to convince the others that he was right. So he said to them, "I don't know about you, but I'm going to go get in that bucket. And I hope that some of you will join me there. Then there might be enough of us together to sprinkle on some of the flowers and make them beautiful again." So Higgins gathered his little water drop legs under him. You know how small those little legs are under a drop of water? Well, he gathered his little water drop legs under him, and he ran as hard as he could, and he leaped up way in the air, and he landed kerplunk in that bucket. And there he sat, just a drop in the bucket. Now, for a long time, Higgins was very lonely. It seemed that no one was going to join him. But after a while, the other drops could see that the grass was all crinkly and brown, and the beautiful flowers were wilting, and the tall green trees had started to droop. And they all agreed that something must be done. So, suddenly, one little drop shouted out, "I'm gonna go get in that bucket with Higgins." And she got her little legs under her, and she ran, and she ran, and she ran, and she leaped through the air, and she landed kerplunk in that bucket. Then two other drops yelled, "Hey, wait for us!" And they ran, and they ran, and they ran, and they leaped together through the air and landed, help me out, kerplunk, kerplunk, into that bucket. Then three drops jumped through the air into the bucket, kerplunk, kerplunk, kerplunk. Then 5 drops, kerplunk, 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 kerplunk. Then 175 drops jumped in. And then hundreds and thousands of drops came from all over just to hop into that bucket with Higgins and his friends. Soon, the bucket was completely full of water, but there were still more drops that wanted to join, so they found another bucket, and then another, and then 4 buckets, and 10, and hundreds, and then thousands of buckets filled with water. Then along came a powerful wind that blew over all the buckets, and all the water flowed together to make a mighty stream. And everywhere that water flowed, the grass turned lush and green again. The flowers bloomed beautifully, and the trees stood tall and straight once more. And this happened because Higgins had a dream, and his dream came true. Because Higgins knew that although he was just a drop in the bucket, enough drops in the bucket make a bucket full. And when there are enough buckets, with a little wind behind them, then good change, hope can happen. And the same is true of us when we decide to work together in new ways, when we decide to give up our confining habits of thought. Just jump in the bucket, or step into the sea up to our noses, or become a butterfly. We know that hope and new realities are always possible. And then, to quote the Bible again, justice will roll down like waters, and righteousness like a mighty stream. And may it be so.
I'll get there. We are sharing our Offering the Plate this July with Pro-Choice Ohio and Faith Choice of Ohio. Reproductive health care is a justice issue. The right to make decisions informed by our circumstances in conversations with family and health care providers is a matter of dignity, respect, and privacy. The Supreme Court and our own state government have ruled that reproduction is not a private matter and carries the threat of penalty and imprisonment. This affects everyone, especially those in minority communities and people in economically challenging circumstances. This work is urgent. The work is incredibly hard. The work is desperately needed. Thank you for supporting reproductive rights. Please use the QR code to go to our website, firstucolumbus.org, and click on the Donate tab to share as you feel called and can. Our offertory will now be gratefully received. Thank you for your generosity.
For our caring meditation this morning, I offer words by Reverend Hope Johnson. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best we can. We are one. We are one working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing, and rejoicing, getting to know each other and taking risks. Opening up, questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes, paying attention. asking questions, listening, living our answers, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, and being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together. We are one. This morning, we lift up the citizens of Eastern Kentucky who are dealing with the devastating and deadly effects of the worst flooding in years. Others in Missouri and Arizona are also facing dangerous flash floodings as well. Today, we sit surrounded by these many connections, both visible and invisible, that remind us every day that we are not alone. Peace be with us and with all beings that share this earth. And now I invite Pat to come forward, our pastoral listener, to share this week's caring cards. And I will share the joys and sorrows submitted this morning.
There are 2 caring cards and 2 announcements. With much joy, Becca Fredine and Daniel Bennett celebrated their marriage on Saturday, July 23rd at First UU, where Becca grew up. They had been officially married at the courthouse during the height of COVID in 2020. Last Saturday, they were joined by friends and family and the third leg of their tripod, their son Peter. We send caring and healing thoughts to Jeannie Ray, who had been in Riverside Hospital for 6 days due to breathing problems. Not only is she improving and came home Friday, but she's here with us today. I think, yes. I love the hat, and especially the point. We have 2 announcements also. Congratulations to Marian Garcia. She has been approved as a remote tutor for the State of Indiana Education Scholarship Account Program. Through her certification as a certified Orton Gillingham tutor, she helps students who struggle with reading and spelling. She also works in the front office at First UU. And finally, from Thomas Purley, my brother's neighborhood is in mourning. A local neighborhood hangout and institution, Jim's Steaks, burst into flames today. The owner says he will rebuild. The joint is on South Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Scott, we're thinking of your neighborhood, thoughts and prayers. We encourage you all to visit the caring table in Beach Hall after the service to sign caring cards, whether or not you know the people. This long-time tradition of signing cards in person is an important outreach to members and friends. Even if there are no cards to sign, you can stop by and say hello to the volunteers.
And now for the joys and sorrows that you submitted this morning. We have 2 joys. The first one, Jack M., who is a son of Andy and Jim M., he had his news story, A Letter to President Biden, and it won an Emmy Award last night. And this is another joy. This is from Quill S. I'm now a senior in high school after a little more than a year of changes, new schedules, learning how to socialize again. It was a lot of work, but now on August 29th, I will be attending a semester at CSCC. We hold all the joys and sorrows, these and others unspoken, gently in our hearts. And as we ring our temple bell, I invite you into a moment of shared silence to reflect, imagine, pray, or simply breathe. We will ring the bell a second time to continue our service.
Our closing words today are by Ian Huntington Bear. You are in the story of the world. You are the world coming to know itself. May you trust that all you will ever say or do belongs in the story of this world. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our final hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. It's number 1008 in the teal hymnal, and the lyrics will, of course, be on the screen.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell the story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Please be seated. If you're online, I invite you to bring your chalice a little closer to extinguish our flames together. And if you're here in person, after the postlude, you're welcome to go to Beach Hall for some conversation and maybe some coffee. I invite you to join me now in speaking our vision statement as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of vision. As we go forth, let us heal and transform ourselves and our world through reason and love. Our flame is extinguished, but the light lives on in our hearts and our lives and our stories. So please remain seated as Brandon plays our postlude, and I look forward to seeing you after the service.